Have you ever noticed there are people who, without even realizing it, make you age a little bit every day? It's not because they're doing anything overtly bad. They don't yell, they don't insult you, they don't smoke next to you. They just say small things, but enough to make you start doubting yourself. At this age, I should know better. Stop dreaming. Be content. You start to shrink. You stop sharing what makes you happy. You stop thinking about tomorrow. And then, one day you realize you're just living to get through the day. This isn't a sign of aging. It's a sign that you're surrounded by the wrong people. If you've ever felt your motivation to live slowly fading away, if there are mornings you wake up feeling physically fine but emotionally heavy, then maybe someone is affecting you more than you think. The real question isn't, how can I live longer? It's, is there someone making me live less every day without me even realizing it? If the answer is yes, then this video might change the way you choose to live the rest of your life. We'll talk about 5 types of people you should avoid, not because they're bad, but because they make you forget just how strong you once were. If you think this is important, hit the follow button so you have a place to remind yourself to live true to yourself every week. Let's begin. You may have sat next to them at a cafe, at the dining table, or exchanged random texts during the day. They always have something to complain about. It seems harmless at first, but over time, their energy starts to seep into you without you noticing. They're the type of person who only complains but never takes action. Do you know that a person can make you feel sick, age faster, and drain your spirit just by complaining enough? They don't need to yell at you. They don't need to curse you. They just need to pour these words into your ears every morning, every night. Things today are terrible. Your kids don't care. You're old now. What's the point of living anymore? Do you recognize these lines, like inhaling smoke for too long? You don't notice the damage to your lungs until you can't breathe properly anymore. But in reality, it's a tiny psychological poison repeated every day. A study from Yale University shows that older adults surrounded by negative content, whether through words, live 5 years shorter. Every time your brain absorbs sadness or negativity, stress hormones rise, immunity weakens, sleep becomes disrupted, and the body starts aging emotionally. Mrs. Susan, 76, used to be healthy and sharp, loved baking. But after months of spending time with friends who only talked about medication, complaints, and dissatisfaction, she began withdrawing from her positive habits. She stopped cooking, didn't want to go outside, lost 4 kilos in 2 months, developed insomnia, and felt aches without clear cause. Medical tests showed nothing, but a psychologist said in 10 minutes, your body isn't sick, but your brain is being poisoned by emotions every day, and that's making you age faster. The most dangerous part. No one notices this early on. No one thinks just a few sad words could slowly kill someone. But it's like the smell of cooking smoke. You won't notice it until your lungs are damaged. If you leave a conversation feeling heavy in the chest, sore in the shoulders, or lacking appetite, take that as the first sign. You don't have to cut these people off. Just limit your time with them. Gently steer the conversation elsewhere. Or find another group, one where people talk about food, small talk, or simply where there's laughter. Because sometimes choosing who you listen to is choosing how many more years you'll have to live. Old age doesn't need many people, just the right people. So that tomorrow morning, you'll want to open your eyes, step outside and say, today is still a day worth living. But not everyone complains loudly. Some people take a more subtle approach. They slowly sow fears in you about aging, illness, and inevitable helplessness. At first, it may seem like concern, but the more you hear, the more you feel yourself growing weaker without understanding why. Have you ever met someone, and after just a few minutes of talking to them, you didn't recognize yourself anymore? My grandmother once came home after such a conversation. She couldn't sleep that night, and the next morning, when she sat down to eat, her hands were shaking so badly she couldn't lift a spoon. You went there still feeling healthy, still believing you could walk a few more rounds tomorrow. But when you left, you felt like your heart had been drained. Not because they did anything wrong, they just cared for you in a very gentle way. You must be starting to get weaker, huh? you're doing really well to still go out at your age. Your doctor probably told you to rest by now, right? No yelling, no harsh words. But just these small remarks over time can slowly steal your strength and peace of mind. Not rude, but quietly cold. And sometimes that coldness can hurt more than a harsh word. For older adults, silence in the home isn't always peaceful. There are silences filled with kindness, where you sit together, hear the comforting sound of water boiling, and someone gently asks, "Would you like some tea, Mom?" But there are also silences that feel like emptiness, where every sound seems distant, disconnected, and the gaze no longer lingers on you. Research from the U.S. National Institute on Aging shows that older adults who live in environments where they are present but not connected are 3 times more likely to experience depression than those who live alone but have meaningful social interactions. In other words, being near loved ones but emotionally detached can be even more draining than being alone. Mrs. Doris, 74, from Phoenix, used to have dinner every week with her daughter and grandchildren. But in recent months, she began declining. "I'm a little tired. Let's do it next week." It wasn't because she was busy. It was because every time she visited, everyone was glued to their phones. No one asked her a real question. When she made a suggestion, all she got was a frown and a quick, "Mom, just let me handle it." She knew she wasn't being hated, but she wasn't really needed either. And that made her feel, though invited, a guest who shouldn't stay too long. If you keep visiting a place like this, your spirit will begin to shrink. Not because anyone hates you, but because no one is really listening. Sometimes you don't need anyone to chase you away. You'll stop going on your own, not to cut yourself off, but to preserve what warmth you have left. If a home only makes you retreat, filled with sighs and unfinished conversations, give yourself the freedom to choose somewhere else. A place where eyes brighten when you walk in. Because not every home can hold a heart if it no longer has a voice that genuinely listens. Silence doesn't kill, but it can kill the feeling of truly existing. Sometimes it's not the house that tires you out, it's the rhythm of life within it. Every hour that passes, you feel like you're trying to keep up with something that no longer belongs to you. Have you ever stepped into a house and just 10 minutes later found yourself checking the clock? Not because anyone dislikes you, not because something bad happened. It's just the air in that house makes you feel unnecessary. And oh, Mom's here from the kitchen. A vacant chair with no one offering to pull it out for you. A meal where you're present, but no one asks, "Mom, is this okay for you?" You sit there quiet, then start thinking about how to leave so no one feels sorry. In reality, no one in the house is intentionally trying to make you sad. But the coldness of indifference, sometimes it hurts deeper than sharp words. According to a 2020 study from the National Institute on Aging, the feeling of being ignored in familiar surroundings is one of the most common causes of withdrawal, mild depression, and social disengagement in people over 65. They don't retreat because they want to. It's simply because they no longer feel like they have a reason to stay. Mrs. Margaret, 72, from Dallas once shared, "I went to my daughter's house with some homemade cakes, but when I arrived, the door was ajar, and no one came out to greet me. My grandchild was glued to the screen. My daughter shouted from the kitchen, 'Mom, just sit and relax, I'm in a meeting.' I sat there for exactly 26 minutes. No one asked anything. No one poured me a drink. I got up and said softly, 'Okay, I'll head home now.' It sounds positive, but these words, if repeated too often, can make you lose the ability to recognize when you truly need help. According to a study from the University of California, 25% of people over 65 in the U.S. have experienced mild to moderate depression. Yet most do not seek help. Not because they don't know they need it, but because they were taught from an early age that feelings of weakness are irrational, a nuisance, or that they should deal with it on their own. Ms. Helen, 74, from Seattle, used to be sociable, but after losing her husband, she began feeling empty every morning. One day she shared this feeling with her granddaughter, only to receive the response, "Grandma, don't overthink it. You're old. Why be sad about being lonely?" From that moment on, she stopped saying anything more. Every morning she would wake up, close the curtains tightly, turn on the TV, not to watch, but just to hear something. She ate alone, not opening her phone. Her late husband's old picture, she turned it face down on the table. Gradually, no one saw her calling anyone anymore. Sadness, when dismissed as something insignificant, slowly eats away at you. It causes sleepless nights, makes you forget to take your medicine, and leads you to stop visiting the doctor. Even when you feel your heart beat slower, your head grow dizzy, or your body feel unusually tired. Some people die from illness, but others, simply because no one acknowledges they are sad. You don't realize you need help because you are used to bearing it alone. Be cautious of those who make you feel like you are not allowed to be sad. It's not about cutting them out of your life. It's about keeping enough distance so you don't lose touch with your own emotions. If you no longer know when you need help, no one will be able to help you. You don't need anyone's permission to heal. You don't need a grand conversation. You only need one small thing each morning. Before turning on the TV, write down something you are grateful for, even if it's just a cup of hot tea, an old text message, or the sound of rain in the morning. Writing down your feelings won't make you weaker. It's a way to remind your brain, I can still feel. I'm still here. And if someone has ever brushed off your sharing, don't hesitate to say something very simple. I just want you to listen. No advice needed. You have the right to keep your own mental space. You have the right to be vulnerable, to know when you need strength. If any of this resonates with you or reminds you of someone quietly living like this, leave a dot in the comments. No need to say much, just a whisper. I was like that. And if you want to hear about the other two types of people, those who affect you more than you think, follow me. Not because you're weak, but because those who know how to avoid the right people are the ones who will live longer. There's another type of person, one who doesn't make you sad, doesn't scare you, doesn't dismiss your feelings. They simply live without expectations, without goals, without hoping for anything new. If you stay around them long enough, you begin to believe that living like this is normal. There's a kind of depletion that has no symptoms, no fever, no pain, no falling. It's just. One day you no longer make plans for tomorrow. There are mornings when you might encounter this image. An older person sitting silently on the porch, not reading, not speaking, not looking at anyone. There's nothing sad, nothing peaceful about it. Just eyes no longer focused on anything. It's as though today, to them, is just a pale copy of yesterday. The human body doesn't just run on food, it runs on purpose. Losing purpose doesn't kill you immediately, but it puts your entire biological system into a low consumption state without any warning bells. According to research from Harvard University, older adults without specific life goals have nearly twice the death rate. Without purpose, the brain has no reason to release dopamine, the motivation hormone, which regulates mood and strengthens the immune system. When dopamine drops, cortisol, the stress hormone, rises. Immunity weakens. The central nervous system diminishes its responses. It's like an abandoned house. The lights slowly turn off room by room, and sometimes just a mild cold can become the final trip. Mr. George, 77, was a math teacher. After retiring, he stayed healthy and self-sufficient, but his wife began to notice. He no longer made shopping lists. He didn't fix the broken clock. He didn't ask, what are we eating tomorrow? He just ate, then sat, then slept. A few months later, he was hospitalized for a mild infection. The doctor said, there's nothing serious, but it seems he no longer wants to be healthy. On the other side, Mrs. Evelyn, 82, lives alone in Chicago. Every morning she wakes up early, brews tea, and writes a few lines in her breathing diary. No one reads it. She doesn't share it. It's simply to remind herself, today I'm still alive, and I still have something to do. Some people live long, not because they are healthy, but because each morning they still have a small reason to wake up. You don't need to change everything about your life. Just reignite one thing that used to make you smile. Write a few lines in a journal. Tend to the plants on your porch. Call your grandchild and ask, did anything fun happen today? Or simply find something that makes you look forward to tomorrow. Because when you have a reason to look forward to something, your body will find a way to survive. And sometimes that small thing is exactly what saves you from a life that fades away quietly, unnoticed. Then there are those people who don't make you feel or worried, but when you're around them, you start to feel like you should shrink, like you should dream less, talk less, be less different, without even realizing why. Do you know just being around the wrong person for too long can make you shrink until eventually you stop feeling like life is worth living at all? There's no shouting, no violence, just a disapproving look. A comment like, "You're being too much." And then you start to censor yourself, talk less, laugh quieter, wear duller colors, just to avoid discomfort. But the most dangerous part is you start to think maybe you should stay silent forever. Erlyn Levine, a geriatric specialist, once said, "Older people don't die from loneliness. They die slowly in the feeling of being shrunk, of having their autonomy stripped away without anyone noticing." And this isn't just an emotional warning, it's physiological. Studies published in Psychoneuroendocrinology and summarized by PMC show that stress in close relationships can increase cortisol levels, disrupt immunity, cause insomnia, raise blood pressure, and speed up biological aging in older adults. In other words, if you've been shrinking for too long, your body will start to shrink too, system by system. Nancy, 74, from New Jersey, was once the firecracker of her retired friends group, line dancing, karaoke weekends, and loving her bright red clothes. After moving in with her daughter-in-law, just a few gentle comments. "Mom, don't play the music too loud. That red shirt is a little too bright, Mom. Don't invite friends over when we're busy." A few weeks later, Nancy was wearing brown clothes, turning off the music, and stopping calls to her friends. She started staying home, not going outside, not even getting dressed in the morning. 2 months later, she was diagnosed with mild depression, and her memory began to slow. You might think, "I'm old now, I'll just keep quiet to avoid causing trouble." But the price you pay is that you no longer recognize who you are. If someone is causing you to shrink bit by bit, don't stay silent. Choose the shirt you used to love. Call a friend who used to make you laugh. Play the music that made you feel alive. Because you know if you keep shrinking little by little, eventually the life inside you will shrink too, without any warning. Living long isn't as valuable as living fully, and no one deserves to live fully more than those who've almost reached the end of their journey. There are things we only truly understand after living most of a lifetime, that the person who weakens us the most doesn't have to raise their voice, that the deepest exhaustion doesn't come from our bones and joints, but from relationships that make us stop seeing ourselves. You've just gone through 5 types of people you should avoid. Not to blame them, but to preserve the part of yourself that's still alive and still wants to live. Age is not a dead end, it's a reminder. You have the right to choose who will walk with you and who should stay behind. Sometimes you don't need to cut off. Just take a step back to give yourself some breathing space and look again. Who makes you feel smaller and who makes you want to stand tall again? If, after watching this video, you feel the need to let go of an old relationship or open up more to yourself, do it. You don't need anyone's permission. Because sometimes just a small action, like opening the curtains in the morning, wearing a different shirt than yesterday, or stepping outside to catch the first rays of sunshine, can be enough to help you step out of that fog. I would love to hear from you. Have you ever been close to someone who made you lose your light? Have you ever chosen yourself again, even if only in silence? Share it in the comments because your words today might be exactly what someone needs to rediscover themselves. If you find this video meaningful, don't hesitate to share it with someone in your life, someone who needs to hear these words. And you might be the one who brings about the change. They deserve to be reminded they still have many days worth living, not for anyone else, but for themselves. Thank you for staying until the end. I look forward to seeing you in a truly different conversation where we not only live through the years, but live with every precious moment.